All right, everybody. Now is the moment we will talk about, well, something many will shock. And we say it maybe first, but no doubt this will change in 2026 very rapidly. Bold statements that PKM tools and note-taking apps will disappear. And you might have watched already the last two videos I published on this YouTube channel. And I wanted to bring on my good friend and co-founder Paco Cantero to this live stream here, because we will share from two different business owner perspectives and multi-business owner for Paco how we actually use exactly that I shared with you on YouTube on a daily basis. And we will go behind the scenes. It will be not just only talking, we will do screen sharing and dive really in. Make sure to share any questions that you might have along the way, and we are happy to answer them. Paco, welcome.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm always good. That's what you trained me to be, right? It's always good.
Yeah, it's good, and we are living an amazing era, I would say.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy too, because finally we can conclude that we are building our best productivity system ever.
Yeah.
Okay, because this AI has completely changed the rules, and that's what we will try to explain. Okay, because here, if we go inside the system that I've created, it could be hours and hours talking, and at the end, people will just feel even more overwhelmed, because it's kind of overwhelming even for myself, that is the one that built it, okay? And that it's constantly, because I'm constantly building this in parallel as I work. The moment that I think that something can be improved or needs to be improved, or any crazy idea comes to my crazy mind, well, I implement it. That's the life-changing thing. We don't have to wait for the software companies to launch the new features. And I think that that's one of the most important things that we need to understand, okay? That this vibe coding thing goes far beyond just the world of coding. I think that it's a different way of work.
Well, in fact, I mentioned this in the video today too, as you're just saying it. I want to interrupt you here there, because vibe coding, I said too, this is where people might now think I'm vibe coding, but we are not creating apps to sell to anybody. This is the difference. You are vibe coding, and I don't like this term. I prefer context engineering, or just building your stuff, because this is what it will be. You don't understand. You don't need to understand what's really happening behind the scenes anymore, as you are able to. When it comes to the visualization of the things, as Apple and Google will roll this out on Mac, and we will be doing this on autopilot. It will be normal that if I have an issue, that I can create a mini app to make this, but it's not even going into an app, right, Paco? So sorry for interrupting, but
and the thing, no. This needs to be a conversation, not a lecture. Okay, and the thing is that we did start our setup with the world of PKM, because if we are honest to ourselves, we have never found the perfect tool, okay? There has always been gaps in the world of PKM. Yeah. By that, we mean personal knowledge management. It means how we manage our information, okay? That information is so abstract, so generic, so impressive. It's not easy to deal with. That's why there are so many note-taking and PKM tools, and why none of them have achieved, in my opinion, the perfection until today, okay? Because now it's the moment. We thought that when AI emerged, the process would be that we have a PKM tool, okay? Let's call it Tana, let's call it Heptabase, let's call it MEM, let's call it whatever, Notion, and on top of that, we put the AI layer, okay? But that wasn't the case, because when we did that, at least it's what we have experienced, the outcome coming from AI wasn't accurate at all, okay? It was better than nothing, but it wasn't what we expected, okay? And that's why we decided that we need to change the way we think, and that's why a change of mindset, and why mindset will be present as a word during this podcast episode, because that's what we need, okay? We need to change how we approach tools, because this is what's changing and we are in the middle of that process, okay? So instead of having a specific tool and putting AI on top of it, we need to do the other way around. That is, we have to consider AI the entry point for the information, okay? And there's a layer below that gives a structure to that. So AI can get a better understanding of your whole world. And that's what's not happening when we use any other PKM tool and ask AI about it. Is not fully context aware. And that's what we have noticed, no matter. And it was just a simple experiment, okay? The moment that we started, for instance, working in a project in Claude, okay, that has a perfect context, and we ask the same prompt there than in the project that in my case I had created on Tana, the outcome was totally different, okay? The one coming out of the project of Cloud Code was much more precise, much more specific, much more valuable than the one that was coming from Tana. And that was something that I never understood, okay, until I dedicate quite a long time trying to understand why that was happening.
Well,
and the
something
thing
I can
is
add
that
here to this point, we used Claude Code to create, or I used it to create in my ICOR application that you might watch this live stream right in or you're a member of. This is all built with Claude Code. That allowed us to move on from Mighty Networks, our previous membership platform, to this new self-built platform, right? That's not something we teach here. I just want to say how deep we are in using AI. And the thing is that I noticed there, and that I saw with other coders using this, that if they use something like, so I'm using Claude Code natively as it is in the terminal and in VS Code, right? So that's what I shared in the latest video, what this is all about. And then we had these vibe coding tools like Cursor, Windsurf that you can download, or even online Lovable and so on. And all of them use also Claude. But there was already this, what you just mentioned, Paco, that the outcome was completely different. And this is where we think that the API version of Claude used by a third party and provided to others is not as capable as the thing that you use natively. That might be on purpose, but it never worked as good, or maybe due to the things that the third party adds in between and you know, how it manages the API there. And the other thing I wanted to add before we move on, to step back a bit and talk first a bit more about what we did before we ended up here, right? You mentioned it briefly, but I want to dive a bit deeper into this, as I was using Heptabase and you've been using Tana. This is something that those are following us know this for over 2 years. We are using this. You started with Heptabase together with me. I started using Tana and Heptabase in parallel, and you did. And you ended up using only Tana, and I ended up only using Heptabase because it was for our use cases the best fit. Now, AI came, the connection, and we saw immediately, oh yeah, we never believed in the internal AI inside the tools due to lack of outside context. But now we had Claude and we had MCP servers. And this was the magic where we thought, okay, perfect. We can now connect everything with Claude, just stay in Claude and use it to interact with. And there's where Heptabase let me down, because I expected them that they will update their MCP, and there was no way to create interconnections between the different nodes, create automatically references. And this was actually the big step forward, that AI helps me to create these references on autopilot. And even internally, that didn't make this properly work yet. So this is where you said then, oh, but I'm using the Tana MCP, and it does it perfectly. It understands the super tags, it understands the referencing and all these things. And that's how you use Tana together with Claude through the MCP. And now we come to the moment where I said, well, maybe I should start using Tana again just for this reason, as I don't really need to be inside the PKM tool anymore, but I want to have these connections automatically created. But at the same time, I started building the AI team on a local folder for the business itself, outside of my personal knowledge management. While I built this AI team, you built in parallel, without me knowing, your own personal knowledge management or personal knowledge assistant, as we say now, right? And then we met, and that's also on this YouTube channel where you shared your first version of this personal knowledge management, of this first version that you built there. And now we came a long way where we already back then when you shared this thought, but why do we actually use Tana or Heptabase or anything at all anymore? Do we actually need it? And you question already yourself if you will keep using it. And I realized I didn't open Heptabase for months the moment I started using this AI team in a local folder. And here we are, okay? And this is where this everything comes together. I shared now in detail the videos on YouTube, how I built this, how you built this. The foundation is the same. And now let's talk about why we really conclude that this is the end of the PKM tools as we know it for business professionals, but probably also for knowledge workers. We will talk about this today.
Yes, because the moment that we are able to define a structure that we can code without coding, okay, but we perfectly know the structure, the backbone, the entities, the relationship between one object and the other, it's the moment that, and I kept working, and I still keep working in parallel on Tana and, well, many of the systems, because I have connected with, with Readwise and with Day One and many other tools, okay?
Yeah.
And I keep working in parallel, but the thing is that I'm not going back to those systems because everything is presented to me through a user interface that I have developed, okay? That is just something that reflects, that shows me what's in the backend, okay? That it's at the end a database with a lot of tables. In this case, I think that I have more than 150. So here we can see how things can become wild without a single line of code, but understanding what's behind, because that's the important thing. And that's why having a methodology behind like ICOR allows you to really leverage this technology, okay? But I think that there are two main changes of approach and mindset that we need to have. First off is that for the first time in life, an end user can create their own app, okay? Just knowing a little bit about what a structure of data is, like a database or files, okay? A file structure. And second, that we need to enter information to that system through the LLM, because that's important, okay? I don't go to Tana, right, and then go and the LLM takes and grabs that information. No, I directly, using the text box that I have in Claude,
for those who don't know what LLM is, whatever. Paco?
Yes, well, LLM, it's what the type of product that we can call that ChatGPT or Cloud Code from Anthropic, or ChatGPT from OpenAI, or Gemini from Google. Okay, these are what people generically call AI, and all those tools, because those are software tools, okay, have a text box that we can chat, okay, with the LLM, that is the software behind that has the artificial intelligence, okay? So that's the entry point for the information, because that's important, because that is what allows us to use natural language to interact with the tools, okay? Instead of the other way around that I was in the case of Tana. I create a super tag has fields. So whenever I create an entry, I start filling in every single field. That was the old style. Right now, the moment that I enter the information through the text box, okay, the chat bot that we have in any LLM, okay, if the LLM is able to understand the structure that I have previously defined, he will be able to fill in all those fields naturally, okay, without me noticing it, okay?
And here I
think that's a huge step forward, talking about how we deal with information, because now we are able to enter the information in our own system, not in a single chat session that we start from scratch and we ask questions about history or whatever. No, it's that we are entering information into our productivity system, in this case, the knowledge management system, as we have mentioned, and that completely changed the way we operate and work, because behind that entering information will reduce the friction of filling in things, but we will go beyond. During this episode, we will show how things become really wild, because that pivotal moment allows us to start creating a lot of processes that we can launch that can deliver many outcomes to us without having to be nerdy at all, as we will see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But before we move on, I want to address a comment inside our community. One of the tools, Sean Campbell says, one of the tools that I found incredibly insightful was the mapping of links between documents, so I could visualize my knowledge tree. How do you see that working going forward in the PKA system? And that's why I bring up this, because it perfectly matches what you just said. I'm coming from Heptabase, so Tana, there is no visual representation of the connections in this sense that you have a graph overview. Heptabase, I love the whiteboard, obviously, because I was able to manually connect the knowledge, and I will publish a video about exactly this, because I saw other comments on the previous videos where people say, but I understand this for shallow thinking, but I cannot see this for deep thinking. I was never thinking deeper than with the system that I have in place based just on a folder. This is the crazy thing. This is the mindset shift that really happens, because, and the video will be about, where I will share my whiteboard, where I thought about the YouTube. That's crazy that even the timing is the correct thing. 1 year ago at the same time, I made a whiteboard on Heptabase, thinking about the YouTube channel structure and the persona that we're addressing and what videos we should create and all this. Made all these connections, and I got a lot of insights out of it. This year, I made the same process with my AI team. And while you see on the YouTube channel and all over the place how things are exploding right now when it comes to views and all this, and this is all based on this huge context that the AI has available that goes way beyond what I would be able to manually stitch together. And this is where I hand off creating these references. And Paco, for you, it's the same thing, right? So we thought we need to manually always connect that if I talk to a person in a meeting, then I can tag this person. And that was the thing that was amazing for the past years, because then I was just able to open the person and I see all the context, all the meetings I had with this person and all these things. So that's where you link your thinking this way. But this was always a lot of friction, and we justified this friction with the ease of retrieval later on when you put in the work. But now you remove this friction, and this unleashes everything. This is where everything accelerates, and you get much more insights that you would ever get doing it manually, because you're usually not aware of what the future brings and what should get connected. So now you can have AI going through your system, do the reviews, see what is interconnected, and brings up and resurfaces all things if you set the things up properly, right?
The thing is that in the life and every single day of a busy professional, a lot of information goes through our minutes and hours, okay? And we are missing opportunities, okay? The moment that we are not able to move from operations to a strategy, we are missing things, okay? The growth, insights, all those type of things only emerge the moment that we have something that is able to control all the information and start creating those connections. And we are not able, first off, because we are not so capable, but also because it's impossible in our current environment. It's impossible to have that deep thinking process that requires a lot of energy, information, focus. Well, it's impossible. It's impossible. And that was the feeling I have always had, okay? That I had a lot of information stored in my systems, but I wasn't able to grow from it at the level that I expected. Obviously, I grew a lot. I was able to search and retrieve without any problem the information, but not the insights, okay? The insights. That's what this approach changes completely, okay? Because based on just letting the system know what's going on, the system is gonna deliver those insights. And that's for me something that it only occurs the moment that you are able to explain to the AI system what you are, how you are organized, and all the things that are going around your life. That's why it's important to know what are the things. For me, it never worked. The visual connection between things, it's something that it never worked for me. That's why I didn't implement it here, because that's the thing. We need to have a solid foundational core of concepts, of workflows, and based on that, then you create what you are aiming to. And that's important, and that's what people need to understand, okay? That, again, here, we're going to show, in this case, my implementation. In your videos, you showed yours. But these are just examples of the things that you can do just to give some insights, okay, and ideas of what's possible today. But that doesn't mean that you need to do that way, because that's the thing. We come from a place where the software companies told us how things should be working, okay? And that's something that has completely changed. That's why open, let's call them open or flexible tools like Tana, like Obsidian, were so successful, okay? Because people were able for the first time to really create a setup that fit their needs much more. But it wasn't enough, okay? Because we have the limitations of a tool that needs to cover many different needs, coming from a student or a professional or a person who is very creative or a person that looks visual thinking versus another one that looks outlining, that likes outlining, and it's impossible, okay? That's why the moment that we are able to build our own tools, because all this story is not to base this approach to build big software, like, for instance, Linear or ClickUp or those huge, or create a team communication system like a Slack is. That is not the meaning of this story.
Who would be so crazy to create a membership platform, right?
Yeah, but that is even, okay, for me, something that is out of scope for most of the professionals, okay? You can perfectly create your own system, finally, the one that you understand, because that's something. How many people comes to us telling us that they don't understand how Tana works?
Yeah.
What are the best practices? What the heck? The best practices are the ones that you understand, okay? So why don't you create, okay, your best practices and implementing them? Yeah. And that's what happens the moment that we are able to use a tool like Claude Code to really develop what's on our mind. And that's the moment that everything runs smoothly, okay? Because there's no friction at all, and you can retrieve all the information that you have previously stored on autopilot, because you are just, and this is something that we will explain, that is, what is journaling, okay? Because that's something that people
Yeah, but before you move on,
Paco,
Paco, sorry. The thing is, I just want to say, many people probably already realized exactly this. They used something like ChatGPT or Claude in the chat format, and they had a discussion about a very specific topic, and they got deep insights. And that's what we saw as well, that people then said, ChatGPT is my PKM tool, my personal knowledge management tool, where it's not for us. It was never the tool. It was an intermediate step where we came to the conclusion, and then we fed everything back into our actual system. And that's where the things that we built here, and the others are building already too, is the persistent memory that whatever you do and each engagement you do builds on top the foundation that you already built the day before. And this is the crazy thing. And that was the missing link. And that's what we are capable to do here and everybody else by just using Claude. I see so much hype around these Obsidian Claude combinations. I made a live stream where I tried to make it work. It was so cumbersome. Yes, there are tutorials and all the things, but the end of the day, why do you need this? Why do you need this? What Obsidian provides to you, again, locks you into Obsidian. And that sounds so contradictory. Say this 2 years ago, that Obsidian locks you in and people will call you out for this. But for what we are using now, it's exactly the case that if you want to move on from Obsidian, you don't have any native files anymore. It's all made for Obsidian in particular. Okay, Paco, sorry.
Yes, because the thing is that the moment that we move from just plain information to knowledge is the moment that we start connecting the things. That's why those backlinks, when they appeared, I don't know, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, were so life-changing because for the first time we were able to start navigating, okay, through the information in a similar way than we do in our physical brain, okay? But the thing is that the moment that we are dealing with this information overload that we are constantly suffering, it's impossible to find out concepts, insights, connections, themes, everything. It's impossible, okay?
Yeah.
And that's why creating your own PKM allows you to do so, okay? And everything starts the exact same way that we start everything, okay? It needs to run smoothly and pretty easy for you. I mean, the operation that is pretty easy, that is just tell the AI what you are doing, needs to be grab, store, and based on that, AI will do the rest, okay? For instance, if we go back to the sample of someone using ChatGPT to create a conversation and they say, well, I have been doing this back and forth, so now, can you please, okay, extract the essence of knowledge of this conversation and store it properly so that I grow and I can retrieve, and also you can start connecting the things, but it's AI that start doing that process of distilling the information plus creating the connections. And that's the moment that you are able to receive those outcomes that are so impressive, because no matter that AI is doing the connections, but you have created the backbone, okay, the structure that allows you to understand the outcome perfectly, okay? And the moment that you receive those insights, you say, but what the heck? This is amazing. I wasn't aware of this. And that's how you grow, okay? Because everything starts by journaling, that is just telling, and we will share what journaling means in this concept, okay? Because, for instance, many people start journaling, and at the end of the day, they decide that they will do that deep journaling analysis, whatever, saying thanks and all those type of things. Okay, beautiful. But the thing is that that's not possible. For instance, for me, it wasn't easy at all, okay? The moment that I'm in the middle of the storm or at the end of the storm, I'm exhausted, okay? I need to receive those input, those coaching pieces of advice the moment that I create the entry, so that at that moment, coaching becomes something and journaling becomes a concept that it's all over the day in my life, okay? I'm constantly receiving feedback and saying, well, this is interesting, this is not, this is whatever. And I keep the conversation, because that's why we change the way we approach work, because now you have a lot of assistants that really understand your reality and that you can start delegating tasks. So you get the most out of your time because you are creative, you are the architect, you are the manager, the organizer, okay? The master and commander, whereas the operational stuff is done by third people, okay? That have many much more capabilities that you are able to do, okay? So correct. I don't know if we can start sharing, because we said that we're gonna share.
Quickly, before we dive into this, reply to 3 questions from the YouTube channel that came up, okay? And then we dive into this, so you can get ready in the background. I know you are already ready as usual, but very quickly here. The one question was, I'm not sure if when I click here if things are sharing. Yeah, it does work. So what do you think about MCP or CLI tools which help agents to navigate and organize the knowledge graph? Yeah, I think this is something we addressed already in this conversation, that we are doing, you know, I don't know if he's referring to the knowledge graph in Obsidian or in general a knowledge graph, but that's where we can leverage it. For example, I'm also using Miro with AI. Whenever I need to visualize something, I do it. If you check out our magic slides inside our courses, they are now all made with AI, but based on what we actually taught. So in fact, it was all the magic slides created by designer and Paco and me together over the years that we had, but we let it recreated by AI, and we've been shocked how well this works. The other question was, do you create...
I would like to add something to that question. That is that, again, we should never be radical in life, okay? This is a matter of balance, okay? This doesn't mean that now forget about all the existing tools and now all in your own tool. That's the one tool approach that we are always against. When you have amazing tools out there that you can keep using properly, because this is not a matter of all or nothing. This is a matter of detecting the gaps, the things that you are missing, like the one that I'm just describing. I manipulate a lot of information during my day, and I'm not getting as much as I would like out of it. How do I cover that gap? Well, this is the solution, okay? But that doesn't mean that I stop using Linear or Slack for communication or ClickUp for project management or Todoist to manage my tasks, because those are tools that are delivering to me what I expect out of them, okay? Yeah. The thing is that now, thanks to MCP or even APIs directly, because, well, MCPs, we have seen that they have their problems, okay? We're not going into that. But, well, you can, I think that the sense of freedom that you achieve with this approach, it's amazing, okay? Because it's the moment that you can perfectly decide what needs to stay in a specific tool and how you interact with it, okay? Yeah. And the moment that you are imagining, again, going back to this ChatGPT conversation, imagine that you perfectly store, but you say, well, and extract the tasks that I need to do and send them to Todoist. And I will keep my workflow on Todoist, processing the inbox, whatever the workflow is, without interrupting anything. But I have taking all the advantage of that, because, for instance, something that I do when that happens, that it's pretty common, is that on the description of the task on Todoist, I have all the context, okay? All the context. AI feels perfectly there. That was something that, well, in the past, I created a link or whatever. That was the friction, okay? Now I forget about everything, and I know in the right tool. So in this case, keep the tools that are really delivering and only think about the gaps, okay? The things that you are missing that you could like, because I know that many people are frustrated about interacting with AI, but losing everything or thinking that they are not taking as much as possible out of AI, okay? And this completely changed the game. This is the moment that you see that AI helps you to leverage everything and to get the best out of your day. And I think that that's the amazing thing.
Yeah, so this answers actually this question that we got. What will ICOR offer that Claude learning our personal structure won't be able to learn? So ICOR is the foundation. Nothing has changed for us. ICOR is the methodology that defines a productivity system end-to-end that we teach. It goes through input, control, output, refine, covers digital note-taking, personal knowledge management, personal task management, project management, and automation. And now, on top of this, we have the AI like a Pro course too. In the end, after automation, and it was already automation in the end of this journey, and now we have AI in the end, because people still don't understand what they are doing. It sounds crazy, but this is the foundation we are talking about. This is where the people have their aha moment when I set up a folder which is based on the common ICOR sense. And then people say, that's how I should do it. And this is where just going through ICOR, even without automation and AI, we see huge productivity boosts just because the whole work gets streamlined. Everybody knows where to find what. And then you identify the gaps immediately, where you identify the friction points immediately that you then can optimize. And this is where you put the layer of AI on top. We talk here just about personal knowledge management. It's not about team sharing things or anything. That's what people get misunderstand too. This is not something you do. What we build here is not something we share with the team. Also, more than 70 people working for Paco, right? This is where every individual inside the team will be empowered by these AI teams. This is the change that will happen. If the business owners help the employees to build their own AI teams for their area of expertise, this will be the game changer for these companies who are able to apply this, and not to force some random AI thing on top of the business and think it works. And that's, by the way, the reason why most businesses fail implementing AI, is they never understood their business processes internally in the first place. Yeah, and then very quickly, Claude doesn't beat Obsidian. It's used as the engine for it. We didn't say anything else. That's the point. What I'm not agreeing with is that I don't need Obsidian on top of Claude. I just need a folder. So Obsidian is just giving me a user interface to visualize the markdown files in a local folder. This is what Obsidian is. And I'm just using VS Code for it and Claude, and I can build now my own user interface the way I like it to represent the data that I have in this folder. And this is the key takeaway where people are so hyped about, I can connect Obsidian with Claude. Yeah, maybe you don't even need Claude. You don't even need Obsidian on that. And then you can switch Claude with Gemini and any other cells. So all that ends up, and that's why we're so crazily hyped right now, it ends up with a local folder. The dream of every Obsidian user, or the reason why they're using it, like, I have control over my files, it's local, all these things just swapped, because now I have control over my files locally, and the Obsidian users, they don't have this control that I have, because it is a reformatted way and form of files that Obsidian is using that I cannot use in other tools. And here we found the way out, and that is AI that allowed us to do so. And many more people will realize this too, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and the thing is that we are using, for instance, some other LLMs like Gemini to generate images, for instance, but it's inside our system, you know, and that's the important thing, you know, that's the important thing.
This is the segue for showing you a screen now, because we talked now about UI. You heard half an hour our stories and so on. And what Paco shares now is exactly this. He doesn't use Obsidian. He uses the interface that he built for himself. And I start sharing the screen now, and here it is. That's what you see on a daily basis, and nobody else in the world does. That's the amazing thing. Maybe you want light mode, you do light mode.
Yeah, and in fact, there is no light mode.
Yeah,
okay?
that's because I'm not surprised, Paco. Oh, wait, are we sharing? Yeah, we're sharing. Okay, great.
Yeah, we are. And the thing is that we can go wild, because here you can see how the things can go really wild, okay, really wild. But this is not a matter of browsing everything. I think that the thing of this session, okay, because we can talk, sorry?
Maybe you can zoom in a bit again, it's very small.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, as you can see here, we can go wild, and this is not a matter of browsing through the tool, okay? This is understanding what I consider. And the moment that we were preparing this session, I said, but well, I could be hours, you know? And in fact, well, we haven't shown anything, and it's 45 minutes just talking, okay? Because there are too many things, because this is something doable, but not something that it's so simple that we can just talk for 15 minutes and everything is crystal clear. But I think that understanding the process behind managing information, okay, it's important. And how I have created this user interface with a specific constraints, okay, so that I force myself to do what I have just said. That is, I want, and that was one of the principles. In fact, I will create an article out of the memorandum, the principles out of this mindset system, okay, because it describes all the ambitions and all the things that I wanted out of this, okay? And for me, using natural language and considering that the entering point, because this is something that now, the moment that you start using it on a daily basis, it seems that it's natural, because the moment that you understand something, you think that you have always thought things that way, and it wasn't. Normally, it isn't that way, okay? For me, entering the information through the LLM was something that was not so clear just, I would say, 3 months ago or so, when I started with this interaction. And I said, well, I need that's the key change on everything, because as I'm not receiving out of the AI inside any of my tools the outcome that I'm expecting, why don't I try to do things the other way around? Okay, I will tell AI the thing, and I need to find a way to give a structure. So AI will create a structure out of something that I create using natural language.
And
okay?
Here I want to share a comment that we received on YouTube. Claude Code is great for someone who is technical, but there's a spectrum: OpenClaw, Perplexity, Computer Manners, Entropic, which is Claude Code, Lovable. It's a new world. Yeah, it's a new world. But again, I shared it in the other video, and Paco, maybe you can say a few words, because I still think people are confused. They think you coded this application and you created this because you have coding background or something like this. Let's double down on this, how you actually created this.
Yeah. Well, I can share, and I will, okay? And that's one, because, well, that's the thing, that by creating this, I don't know how much content we can generate, because I think that we will die, okay? And still just share.
And by the way, I need to tell you, Paco is the author in our company, right? He's writing all the articles. So if you follow me on YouTube and you want to see the details, Paco already published several articles going really deep into how he set this up, how he came to the conclusion to all this. So you can read all this inside my ICOR after that.
The thing is that you can perfectly start talking, okay, to AI about what you want to do, okay? And I say, well, I want to create a database with a specific structure, okay? And, well, take the best out of Claude code in related to files and how you use skills and all that stuff that I have no clue, but that's my starting point. And start talking. It's by starting talking to this and sharing who you are, your goals, your vision, what you are missing, the gaps, that you can start creating, okay? Because Claude code will give you recommendations, and you just trust. You have to take into account that you have nothing to lose, okay? That's why we say that this is PKM. It's my area. I've been living with Tana for 4 years, with Notion for 2, with Obsidian for another 2. Well, and I have survived. So I have nothing to lose here. And Claude code will start creating the initial structure from you can start growing, okay? Obviously, if you have a technical background, you will accelerate much more the things, or you will end up with a system that it's quite powerful, okay? Because
but I still think it is less the technical background anymore. It is really the thing how to ask the right questions and how to follow up and realign, like working with a team member where you have no clue what this expert is doing in your team, but you have a way of asking the right questions, and it is the same thing here.
I think that it's the exact same way. I've been an analyst for, well, many years, okay, and I prepare Word documents at that time, and I shared them with the developers, and they were the ones who created that, you know, a specific code, but the requirements coming from the client, it's what I was giving to these guys, and they were doing that job. No matter that before that, I have been doing a lot of coding. So for me, preparing those analyses were pretty easy, okay, for me, because I had on mind the ultimate goal, okay, the outcome that I was expecting. So for me, creating the description in a Word document was kind of, okay, but it's not something mandatory to start doing these things, okay? The thing is that if you're a little bit nerdy, you can go wild, okay? Because you can start creating connections that, for instance, right now, I have created connections without using Zapier, for instance, or any intermediate tool. I've been dealing with APIs, and I cannot remember the last time that I dealt with API, things that, but I don't know how to really implement it. I've been without coding, and still I haven't coded because I don't consider that I have coded this. I knew my requirements, and I have a clear understanding of the concepts and workflows behind how I work, because that's the missing thing, and that's the starting point to create something like this, okay? Without those concepts and workflows, that is the ICOR methodology or any methodology, but having crystal clear what you have in mind and how you work so that you can communicate it to AI, in this case, Claude, is the only way to do this, okay? And for me, crystal clear that the starting point of everything, it's the process of journaling, okay? Journaling means describing what you are doing constantly, and this is something that I've been doing. I think that there's like 2 levels of journaling. Let's say the shallow journaling, that is just the things that you have been doing, and deep journaling, that is that introspection that you do, okay, kind of philosophical, okay, that you analyze and try to graph things that allows you to, well, to grow, to remove bad thinking process, to remove anxiety, remove stress, whatever, you name it, okay? Because the thing is that I wanted just to enter the shallow journaling. At the deep journaling, it's something that I want to delegate to AI. And we will use, due to privacy, okay? I won't go into the business, but I think that using personal examples of things that doesn't matter at all, I can share the concepts, okay? So, well, I decided the crazy idea 2 years ago of starting learning piano, okay? And I started creating journal entries here, okay? I will put it here. This is a journal entry, okay? And you can see here, well, there's a lot of things going on here, okay? This is the thing. But what was my entry, okay? My entry was just this original text, okay? It seems like a lot, but it's something that I created in just minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, nothing at all, okay? It's just describing what I have done today, okay? That's a journal. But what does AI do? Well, first thing, I create key insights. So whenever I visit this entry, okay, imagine that you are doing this in any note-taking app. Well, you do this, and then maybe you connect the node or the note or whatever to AI, and let's see what happens, okay? But the thing is that here, I have created this enriched description, okay, that it's in, well, much proper English than mine, but also describing everything much better, okay, because this is kind of an outline, okay? In fact, well, I use Tana to quickly outline the things that I have done, and here I received the enriched description. As you can see, if I read this, this is something easy to read. It has dots, paragraph, long text format, okay? What people love to store in Obsidian and this type of tools that allow the long text format. But the thing is that here, in real time, I have created, well, I use, as many of you know, Tom uses animals. I use exemplars, okay?
Perfect.
That it's a concept.
I interrupt you here again because there was a question about it. And here, do you create named sub-agents for reasons or other than to make it more fun to use? Can Claude Code perform all of the tasks without the AI employees? I personally have these names because I'm interacting with AI in a complete different way. I can much easier keep this in mind. The names, the images is fun. I can relate to them too very much, and this is very personal, whatever you want to use. But the names, I think, is really the thing where I know when I reach out to Nolan, he needs to hire a new AI agent, or I reach out to, I don't know, to Pixel to create a thumbnail or something like that. I directly say it this way, and Larry, my orchestrator, will know what I mean by that, instead of always trying to use abstract words to combine with my real world situation. And this makes it so natural now to interact with the digital system. For me, at least.
The thing is that in my case, I've been using with a concept that it's named exemplars. The first time I saw it was in the Shane Parrish book. I think it's called Clear Thinking or something like that, because I've been following Shane Parrish for, well, I know for years, okay? For years, it's a person that helped me a lot to better understand the process of decision making, that I think that is one of the main processes for any human being. These exemplars, example, okay, and tactic, because you are able to put on the shoes of that person. For instance, an exemplar is a person that is a reference for you in your life, okay? Let's say that you love, I don't know, well, in my case, Ray Charles, okay, as a pianist. I want me to put on the shoes on Ray Charles the moment that I want to receive something out of that area of knowledge for me, okay? And creating this allows me to, first off, train based on Ray Charles concepts and, well, many frameworks relating to piano or whatever, this agent, okay? And also it allows me to quickly direct a prompt to any of those agents, even without going through the orchestrator, because the orchestrators is something that you can decide, or you can go directly to an agent, okay? And here, for instance, as you can see here, I just enter the thing of, well, I've been practicing here, okay, one chord progression, okay? Forget about piano knowledge. Let's focus on the concept behind. I say that I practice a chord progression. It doesn't matter, you don't know what that is, okay? But the thing is that out of that entry that I create quickly, okay, here I start receiving, okay, something that it's amazing. Well, I knew this in this case, okay, but imagine that I didn't knew this. I just say, well, I practiced this progression because I saw it in the internet and I start practicing. But here, Ray tells me it is the single most important harmonic movement in jazz. Imagine that you don't know that, and my final outcome 3 years from now, in a optimistic approach, okay, I want to play jazz on the piano. If I see this, I say, well, then I need to double down, okay? That's the moment that from information you move to knowledge and you move to action. If Ray is telling me that this progression that I didn't know is the most important harmonic movement in jazz, I need to double down on that. So tomorrow and for 6 months, to be radical, okay, I will be doubling down on that chord progression in any key, okay? But this is just a single outcome of this. Imagine how insane this is. Also, I force the thing to have a huge coaching outcome because I read quite fast, okay? And for me, reading, it's something. And the moment that I see this, I say, what the heck, man? Here I can extract, okay, the main things. And also the next step, okay? Because I have many of these, as we will see, so depending on the key element in this case of my life. Yeah,
I love this approach here as well, and obviously this is something I'm doing too. For example, the Stoic mentor, it is Mark Aurelius or Seneca that I'm talking to because they have different perspectives on the things, and I'm reaching out to them. So again, I have the context who I'm reaching out. The thing that I mentioned before is for specialists that I'm hiring for my team, that there is no person that I can directly, I don't know the thumbnail creator out there who can be compared with Ray, right? or with Steve Jobs. But I could bring in, for example, Steve Jobs and say, I want to have an innovative idea about this and have him as an overseer or as a reviewer of the things that the team is doing. So again, I would then refer directly to the person. And that's obviously a perfect example that you brought up here.
The thing is that here, if we just, because I was reading while you were talking, I was reading and I say, the 251, okay, works because of gravity. And I say, well, it's explaining me the why, because I force AI to do this type of outcome, okay? If you explain me why this what this is, okay, then tell me why this is useful. I want to understand the things behind, okay? Well, because of gravity. What is that? Well, he continues explaining the thing. So at the end, I end up knowing about the progression 251 much more, okay? And that gets ingrained on my brain because I'm understanding here. Okay, here, I don't know. Well, AB7, okay, is the dominant. It contains a tritone. What the heck, man? I'm lost. Well, I can re-ask, okay, and start creating that conversation, because imagine that this happens for every single interaction on real time. The moment that I create the journal, I see quickly the coaching, because afterwards I create here another one that is Yoda, okay, because I fell in love when I was a kid with this character of Star Wars, okay? And Yoda is the one that connects, because that was something that I want from this, and it seems that's the crazy thing, okay? There are connections between piano chord progressions and strategy in business, okay? The moment that we see what we are gonna see at the bottom of the journal entry, okay? Because here, I don't know if you saw it, but well, there are more than 3,000 journal entries, okay? So 3,000 items like this one, okay, that we are seeing on a screen. That's the current income. So
and here, by the way, just to give the right context, these 3,000 didn't appear in the past 2 months when you built this system, right? You were able to bring everything in that you already created over all these years into the systems and get whole new insights about all the journaling that you already have done. It was never wasted time.
Correct. And here, Yoda is the one that start connecting the dots between the different areas of my life, because Yoda understands perfectly the structure of my life, what my priorities are. We will see later on how I structure the goals, but all that comes out of ICOR, okay? ICOR gave us that structure, that's why this outcome is not out of casualty, okay? It's because the knowledge behind is well structured, okay? And that's how you get the insights. Because here, I will go into any other, okay? Because here, let's see, here, we lost it, the moment that I was in focus, but here, I can see things, okay? For instance, this is coaching intelligence. This is when the dots, those backlinks, okay? It's the moment that they look primitive compared to this, okay? Because here, the moment that you have a thought or you have kind of a knowledge, you need to name it. It has to have a name, okay? Because if not, you are just moving in descriptions, and descriptions is something that I don't understand, okay? It's not the same to know what a dog is than describing a dog. I need to have a word, okay, a name to refer to that concept so that I can reference. I cannot reference a whole description of a concept, okay, because that's something that is impossible. I need to start creating these terms, and that was kind of a friction for me because there were moments that, how the heck, man, how do I call the 251? It's what? Well, he created the 251 engine. He created that concept. Well, let's see, what is that? Well, I go here, and here I understand everything, okay? It's a simple definition, and I work towards that concept. I create here a workflow, okay? It's introduce, practice, internalize, automatic. This tells me, okay, how many times I have dealt with this concept. If tomorrow, for instance, I double down on the 251, and beware, we need to extrapolate this to the world of business, the world of money, the world of whatever, okay? Here we are talking about piano, but we can use the exact same framework to understand this. Here, the moment that I know that a concept is really important for me, I will force myself to move this through this work stream that it's another concept inside ICOR, okay? And here I created a thing, well, of 3 sessions, okay, of reinforcement to conclude that it has been practiced, internalized. That doesn't matter, okay? The thing is that you can see how here effortlessly, remember that the input, okay, the prompt was just this, okay? That it was something that, by the way, I wrote on my mobile, okay? Without the moment that I finished, that it's fresh, you know? I finished this, I send it, and then it created everything. But
I see already the questions coming in. You wrote this on mobile. How is this possible? As we already had also discussion offline here in YouTube about I'm on my iPad Pro and I don't know how I could leverage this in a way too. So maybe that could bring some insights.
What we said, take advantage of the amazing things and amazing tools that you are currently using. Yeah. I love how I create information or an entry on Tana, on mobile, because it's an outlining. And for me, it's pretty easy. I say, well, I practice this progression. I double down on these other chords. Then I practice in this key. I felt comfortable, period. Okay? And that's in Tana. And then when you go back on desktop, you just copy and paste. People think about, you know, API connections, automations to send information from one place to the other. That can be done. That's the next step. I have already done it, and I have done it. But we want to do things simple, okay? Because, for instance, I have created a connection with Slack. So on Slack, you can create the entry, and it will be synchronized here, and it will appear here. But why complicating the things when you can use an amazing tool like Tana to capture the content on mobile and then creating the thing? And I don't know if that replies the question, but the thing is that take advantage of the things that work. I never felt friction capturing on mobile by using Tana at all. For me, one of the most amazing tools talking about capturing content on the go. So keep using it and see how you can make this work. Okay?
Who are using Apple Notes in combination.
For instance,
right? They take notes, handwritten notes. AI recognizes it. Claude will be able to connect to your Apple Notes and extract it. And this is exactly the way that we need to rethink. If you never had a properly running system, maybe you need to start a bit earlier to understand what it actually needs, so you have a proper note-taking and PKM system. But once you have this, or you have tools that you love to use, just think, how can I leverage what I have in place then use it in combination, and then you might over time see solutions. Okay, I can ditch it overall and I just use only one thing. And that's also, by the way, for Obsidian users and Notion users and so on. Don't kill everything. That's what Obsidian and Notion is right now living from, is from the existing users. They put on easy access to AI. You see, I left Heptabase because they didn't update the external AI integration. And that's where it became useless for me to use it anymore, because I needed to update manually things that I no longer see the purpose in. And this is where Notion and Obsidian and also ClickUp, they double down on this AI integration to keep the people in there. But if you have the option to start from scratch and rethink, or you good to go with this, what we are sharing here for sure. And obviously there are also ways to convert it from Obsidian to just a folder-based structure.
The thing is that apart from concepts, there's an amazing thing that it's patterns, okay? And patterns is when AI is able to create connections between different areas of your life and create again an aiming for it. For instance, consolidate before expansion, okay? This is a principle, okay? And here I always explain, because sometimes there's a naming that I say, what the heck? I don't understand what this is, okay? But let's see if I understand, because I am able to, if I consider that this is not consolidation before expansion, I can tell in the chat window, okay, and say, please change, as you will tell a person.
But
okay?
Here I get an interesting comment on YouTube. Over-engineering a terminal setup and calling Obsidian obsolete is a joke. You're wasting tokens when Claude Cowork handles this natively and faster. It's a good point what you're making there, and I see where you're coming from, and that's where you shouldn't over-engineer. Something I shared a lot in the video on YouTube, where I say AI that's itself will tend to over-engineer the things and build applications. But what we do here is a lightweight interface, and we keep also saying, if you want to have the gateway drug, go for the Claude Cowork thing, as they represent everything the way you want it to be. But if you go for the customization that people tend to want out of Obsidian, that they can have custom plugins and all the things, this is where you can go really wild the way you actually want it and own it at the same time without the need of code. And this is the change that we are talking here about. And if you structure this properly and set up the database the way that we do here, then there is no tokens wasting. There are more tokens wasted if AI needs to think in the Obsidian way instead of in the basic way that it is built from scratch for your specific use case.
And I would say that over engineering, it depends on you.
Yeah.
It depends on you. I mean, you are free to dedicate, take longer or not to these type of things, to improve, to leave it as it is, to go directly to the database and find the things there. Because in my case, for me, this is an investment, okay? This has ROI, 100% guarantee. For instance, look at these insights that I have never been able to receive out of any PKM tool that I have used in my life, okay? And I've been on this for quite a while. The thing is that here I got the definition of the pattern, okay? So for me, this consolidation before expansion, okay? Stabilizing at current capacity before pushing for more. This is something that we can perfectly be aware of the moment that we are running a business. I'll say, no man, before scaling things up, let's consolidate the things, okay? Because if not, things are gonna crash, okay? And this is something that happens many times in my life. Well, here it says 3 domains, okay? 3 domains, correct? Piano, French, I'm learning French too, and fitness, okay? And here, well, it's something related to business, but well, here, there's a connection between fitness and paperless movement, okay? Same principle as killing PM lifetime tier, okay? The paperless movement, we have killed the tier. This is something that I wrote in another journal, okay? That we decided to remove the lifetime tier, okay? Before expanding to simplify the things, okay? And this is connected to these other things, okay? And the beautiful thing is that I can navigate to these type of things, okay? All the entries, if I go, it's a connection with this one, I boom, and I'm here. This is another journal entry that is telling me where this appears. For me, this is the sense of navigating my brain. Okay, this is how I work, how I connect ideas, how I get insights, how I start creating tasks, action, okay, that allows me to move towards my goals, okay? It's the moment that I decide that a project needs to be done. It's the moment that I decide how to prioritize the things. I mean, it's something that for me, it's quite useful, okay? And also, it's delivering to me the content the way that I can process it, okay? I work like this. I love this type of things, okay? Maybe it's not your way of doing the things. Okay, that's the beautiful thing about this. You can have a blank canvas that you can perfectly customize to your needs. And I think that that's the the powerful feature of this approach, okay? That now you can do this type of things, and the moment that you are feeding, as you can see here, 3,104 total journal entries, it's amazing how it starts delivering the things, okay? And I would like to keep going through the funnel so that people understand everything, what journaling is, the outcomes that I receive, but I decided that, well, I need to go a little further because imagine I practice piano every single day. So imagine having journal entries and coaching sessions. There's a moment that you get lost.
And I just
decided
very
to
quickly
synthesize.
switch in between to my interface, just in comparison, which looks completely different and has completely different insights that I consider that I need. Here are my specialists working with me, right? And I think there's Seneca. That's the thing that if you've been referring to, right? He's my Stoic coach, and Marked, which is the guy who helps me to sell on eBay my stuff that I'm too bored to put into there, or Vita, who is my health coach, and if I go there I see the details about my health, which I can certainly improve, otherwise I wouldn't create this coach. So you see, complete different interface. It is just a local HTML file, so don't tell me this is overcomplicated, because this is not an app. Paco built a wrapped app and so on. You can go this road, and it still is not overcomplicated, man. I use so many over-bloated tools, while in fact, most tools that you use are overkill for what you actually use it. We kept saying this for years, that we use Tana, we use Heptabase, we use Notion, ClickUp, but we just use 20% of these tools. And these 20% accelerate our productivity and make us more productive because we leverage the most out of it, but we could live without the other 80%, which is just weight that my AI tool needs now to go through when it goes to ClickUp to understand what are all the bells and whistles that I have here, until I get to the point that I need to update something for you. Building this yourself just in the streamlined way, this makes it much more streamlined and lightweight. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and well, just to finish the loop, okay, we move from journal to coaching and insights, the connections with concepts, themes, cross connections. But I said, well, man, I would like to have like a summary of everything of this piano journal on real time, okay? And I decided to create this concept that it's called guides, okay? Where if I enter, well, I got from different, okay, Yoda, Socrates, well, we could go into Socrates some of the day because it's amazing. Every single week I receive a lot of, well, here it says, okay, knowledge architecture and concept mastery map, 88 coaching concepts, cross domain connections, learning pattern, knowledge gap. Reading this, it's amazing, okay? Reading this guide is full of knowledge of my life, okay, of my life. And this is something that it's amazing. But let's go back to close the loop with the piano example, that here I got a guide, okay, of a combination of the general knowledge about learning piano brought from the internet, the coaching sessions that are customized sessions and outcomes out of my real practice sessions. And here it's like reading the journey itself, okay, that by the way, this is something that it's a markdown file, so I can perfectly read it on my iPad calmly during the weekend and enjoy all my journey, okay? Here it's beautifully formatted, talking about the combination of highlights or milestones that happen, why that happened, okay? And the learning process, okay? Reading this is, in my opinion, mastering, or the way to mastering a journey that you have decided, okay? Because here it combines everything, okay? Knowledge, okay? So it's a reference guide. At any moment, I can go there and ask for information at any moment, but also the pleasure of reading, okay? Here the structure is perfectly done. I can navigate. I can go through that area, okay? Here, it has synthesized to the max, okay? All the things, okay? Why? This, for instance, for me, when I saw this thing, it's understanding the why behind any key, okay? And why they are useful. This is a way for me of learning. It's a learning process that is so beautiful because it's so custom made, okay? That it's simply amazing. And for me, having this connection from just because we have to remember this started just by every single day jotting down during 2-3 minutes a small journal entry, and the rest, okay, the rest was generated by AI. For me, this goes far beyond of just going to a ChatGPT box or Claude chat, okay, and start asking, well, what can you tell me about this progression? This goes far beyond, because imagine all the guides that I have about Yoda, about ICOR. We got my own, okay, guide done by my analysis, my thing. From here, we think about new courses, new products, connections between the things. We are constantly improving naturally. This is based on replies to the people on our membership, feedback that we have received, conversations that Tana and myself have been stored in the system. And this is something that it's so amazing for me, because this has been done on autopilot without me noticing it. And the moment that I start reading it, I think, man, this cannot be happening, okay? If I go quickly, just for instance, how I generate now content compared to the past, okay? The moment that I go here, this is one of my articles, okay? But here I can see, this is, you have to think that I have zoom in just to see the overall. But here, for instance, I can compare two versions of the article. I press changes and I can see the changes, one version to the other. The feature image has been generated. It has created this wording. I got the LinkedIn intro, the LinkedIn post. I created the content mine that here are small entries for social media that they get published.
And here it's really important,
threads,
Paco, to point out again the foundation of ICOR, because
Correct.
you represent here a work stream. And if you have
Correct.
no idea what you're doing on a daily basis, you will overload your tool immediately, or whatever you try to build, because you get random ideas how you could do things. You start things, you let AI do all the stuff, and then you have something that's not working in the end. And you should do this by testing around with empty folder or whatever, or a backup of your data. Play around with it and figure it out, because this is also fun to do. But what Paco is showing here, and the same for me for the YouTube creation, which is now fully managed through my AI team too, this is a very specific work stream we've been running for years, from over 4 years together already, or for 4 years together, Paco and me, but beyond this already. So these were things that we wanted to, where it's worth to bring it in here, because the work stream is ongoing and it won't stop anytime soon. So what Paco already mentioned, it's worth the investment, because the ROI is guaranteed in this case.
Yeah, a lot of ways of inspiring myself, you know, here for the quotes. That is something that I was always missing. And I think that this is, for instance, quite painful for many people. You know, I want to store quotes and get inspired and whatever. Well, here I have the different quotes, and even with images, if that's the case. But here I got a serendipity, so I can quickly go and get inspired by quotes. Well, the thing is references. Whenever I find something over internet, forget about bookmarks, forget about anything, you know, I can display. I have decided how do I want to display the things, grouped by, you know, by books. Well, here there's one, well, clear thinking, here we have it, okay? Clear thinking, but here it's connected with a bucket that it's mental model. It has been auto tagged. I know that it's a book, notes, a key book for 3 lanes. Everything is interconnected. This is my crazy brains, and this is a representation of how we become crazy, because all this is in our minds, okay? And the moment that we can perfectly navigate no matter what we are doing, okay? Here, for instance, the AI reports that we deliver every single day to our members. This is something that I have brought here thanks to our MCP, for instance. And here I can perfectly read quickly, okay, through it without going to the membership, for instance, and everything. I have the executive summary, as I told you, fast reader.
Yeah.
I can read this and I get inspired. It's a way of, well, managing the outer world, okay? I got here a possibility of bringing things from Readwise, for instance, and it's a way of people who say, I'm storing things and never go through them. Well, here I got, well, it's the Zoom, okay? It's storing a little bit, but here, this has been brought, for instance, from Readwise. I didn't kill Readwise, okay? It's there. I create a connection and I decided that it was interesting to bring here the content. Well, this is something that it tells me why this piece of content is interesting. I just reduced to just 5, so at least I guarantee that every single day I'm reading 5 pieces of content that I consider worth saving them. But instead of being there in the graveyard inbox, they come here and they tell me why this matters to you. Okay, this is important, the why and how to apply it. Well, if I consider that it's interesting, I can open it in Reader. I open in here, and well, now I bring here. This is Readwise. I'm inside Readwise, and here I can highlight. I can do whatever I want.
Now look at this, guys. The UI. I mean, obviously it's personal preference, but all the things that I saw, also the visualization of the quotes and the images, which is the my mind style that you copied there more or less, and things like that, that got inspired. And the same for me with all the tools that we used in the past years that we thought, yeah, this was great. I love the interface there, but I love the data handling here. Now you can build it the way that you want it. And I see here a few questions I want to address before we then end the session, because this is that's the longest that we ever did on Monday, but I think it was worth it to really dive deep.
We wanted to do this in just 30 minutes, man.
Well, we could have done if we just started sharing, but the background, we didn't share enough yet about why, the why behind this. And we are not just coming up with something. It is a conclusion that we both ended independently at the same conclusion when it came to PKM. And that's the point here. So for example, well, one thing was this is like a personalized front end UI. This is exactly it. That's where, but I had another comment seeing here. What about Obsidian? Do you consider the overbloat and so on? Don't change the tools if you're happy with it. What we are saying is, you had already Notion and you can build these fancy dashboards in front, but there were always hacks to make things work the way that you can use it, or force Obsidian and Tana and so on to become a task management tool and so on. And this is something that you shouldn't do. And here is another question related to action. What is the action from your part? I understand that you have brought the knowledge closer to you, but what is the action? And Paco mentioned it already. We still use the action systems. We didn't replace this
and
at
the
all.
thing is that the only thing that I brought related to action, because for me, Sunsama works perfectly. Talking about a planner, Todoist is fantastic. It's a tool that it's well, and it's growing and it's taking the best out of AI. So for me, no doubt that's a tool, because it's a stupid trying to emulate. You know, for me, Todoist is simple enough.
We tried, Paco, right? We tried. I mean, with my ICOR, the idea was then immediately, well, but we could make our content creation, the work streams we just mentioned earlier, directly in my ICOR, because we have the database. It ends up there anyway. But no, we kept ClickUp because they provide you exactly what you need for project management and the planning, and also complexity that there you go into the coding area where you really need to maintain a tool in order to make it work. What Paco is sharing here is just making things look more fancy, but if you would open the folder in the background, then he can open up the file and see all the details there. And here we might can address that's how it looks in the backend. That's what I shared in the video earlier today, where I'm using VS Code and 3 terminals open. So you can watch this video after this if you haven't
Correct.
seen it, because this is it. But
the thing is that here, what I did, for instance, Friday, that it's the one that I used, well, as a personal assistant, okay, what we consider a personal assistant and just helping in my day-to-day things. But here, it's just what I call the briefing. It's something that it generates whenever I want by pressing here or every single day. But here it's a dashboard where I have the main things, okay, for today. That is the meetings that I have. I brought them from Google Calendar. The P1 task, that's priority one, the one that I mark as something that needs to be do today. It's open, okay, and here it's linked to Todoist, so I can quickly navigate. And I have an overall idea, these are the emails that I want to tackle today, and this is the task coming from the project management. This is what I did, and also something that for me, it's important, that is how long is left during my day, okay? Here I see, so I see how long is left, because I lose focus of the time that is left many times. And here, and also I see here in the different companies the time that I'm dedicating to every single, based on, very simple, it's just the number. It's not the time that I will dedicate for these things, okay? It's something simple that for me, well, it's something that I was missing. It's something that, well,
but here is really the moment where this is the moment where we need to tell you guys, this is not what you might need to build. And I want to bring in another comment here. Why not use Obsidian as your interface to your knowledge on your phone and let Claude access the data that is synced to your computer home? So next he says you could message Claude from your phone, update base view. When Claude says it done, what you're describing there is your perfectly fledged out workflow that you created. Thumbs up, perfect. It works for you. This is exactly the thinking that you need to do. I don't need to use Obsidian, and you can use Obsidian as long you're aware how you're using it and how you're leveraging. I'm fine using just Claude in a remote control with my Claude on my Mac and directly interact with my knowledge there. And then the other question is then, how much storage do you need to store all this information? Why do you have to bring it down to your computer? Good question again. But when we think about the storage for text files, guys, what are you talking about anymore? Everybody stores their the videos and all the things. And if you run out of data, this is where then you again start asking the other questions. Obviously, the videos and all the things are not downloaded to the computer. We have external databases that we can connect with API. There are then options that how you can, go further. If you ever hit the ceiling, ask us, we will tell you all the solutions that are able there. But in most cases, people ask the wrong questions. They always think ahead of time, and what if, and if this, and so on. And this is something they never get started properly. And when you hit the ceiling and you have tried to keep it as simple as possible all the time, because Paco, what he shows there is already a complete different application compared to what I saw a month ago, or when was it, right? With now showing up to-dos and tasks and things like that. This comes naturally because you think, I'm in there all the time, why not show this too? And you do it, but you do it in your personal space and don't get judged by anybody why you edit it this way and why you visualize it this way and so on.
Yeah, correct. And I think that that's the freedom we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, because that's what I felt. Okay, I have never felt so in control of the tool that I'm interacting every single day. I also, no matter that, obviously, people who know me know that this is not what I like the most, but well, it's not quite horrendous the moment that I use Visual Code to interact, creating the entry point. And the things that I do really want to enjoy talking about the outcome is something that's why I created the UX, okay? Because there's no need at the end. All this is stored in a database and also in Markdown files, so I could just go using any Markdown reader, okay, and see things there. But I thought that, and also, well, it was because I wanted to do it, okay, because I wanted to create a user interface that really pleases me the way I have always envisioned, and I brought here the inspiration from most of the tools that I have always loved. and create that merge that it's impossible, okay? And
the thing is that people need to understand what this is all about here, that up to now you had a local folder, and a tool like Obsidian allowed you to visualize the things in a much nicer way than reading Markdown natively and so on. Also, connecting it like this example here, that you have a cloud option and you can access it on mobile and so on. Yeah, perfect. This is exactly the way to go where you use this. But now we entered the new era where you can build something like Obsidian, even smaller, lightweighter for yourself. And this is the crazy thing that is happening. And that's what we are so hyped about. So people who loved Obsidian might now see the option to really build the thing that I always wanted from, by downloading all the different plugins they had and how to interconnect and how to bring in AI into Obsidian. All these things, the flexibility might be much easier to just start from scratch and build it yourself. You might be surprised.
And also that I would like to mention that this is not just cool things, okay, for the sake of it. No. It's directly connected to business optimization, to business revenue, and to grow as a person at all levels, okay? And I think that that's important, okay? That we got evidence that we have improved amazingly since we decided in last November to let Mighty create our own site, talking about what we envision, okay? The best learning platform for busy professionals, talking about productivity. In my opinion, we have done an amazing job. It has helped us to deliver our message, okay, and all our learning, because we have to think that we are sharing there, I don't know if I'm wrong, but over 1,000 different pieces of content, over, I think that it's 14 different courses. Well, it's insane to manage that overwhelming. We have transcriptions of all the single coaching, you know?
Managing was never the problem, but leveraging all the content that we created. This was the big thing. That the AI...
Yeah, making that content digestible and easy to understand for our people. That's something also that, thanks to all this improvement and different iterations, at the end, we have ended up with a way of working that it's totally different. For instance, how we communicate, Tom and myself, it has changed completely. Now we have a hub that we can grab information, as you have seen. I grab information from the reports, but I'm also managing information out of how the business is going, and it's inside my business system, and I can manipulate, I can reference those insights, those type of things, and that's the way that you manage knowledge, okay? Because you can see that you are growing with it, and also that is constantly delivering punctual action and specific actions that are moving forward towards your goals. And I think that that's amazing. And of course, if you love this type of technical improvement, it's something that you will enjoy a lot, because I think that behind any productivity nerd, there's always someone who wants to create something that helps them make their life easier, okay? I think that most of the people in the world of productivity is people that are dealing with quite a complicated life, and that's why we bet on tools and create concepts, workflows, methodologies, frameworks, whatever, to take the best out of the different tools that we were using. And now, being able to do that by yourself, to cover those gaps that you've been suffering for such a long time, I think that, in my opinion, it's a pivotal moment. I think that this is not just hype. This is a different way of working. We have been able to be much more independent, talking about the way we develop our work, but also not about increasing the speed, but increasing the quality, increasing the volume, and that's directly connected to the results that we are achieving with this project and any other projects in our life. Yeah. This is something that, for me, it has been a pivotal moment. I think that we are inside the revolutions and we are not conscious, because also there are many things that we fail down, and maybe 2 months from now we will be telling some other thing. But what I like the most is that no matter how amazing and pivotal moment this is, integrating AI into your productivity system, what I have loved the most is that ICOR didn't crack at all. It's such a solid foundational core that no matter what you put on top of it, it will work. It happened with all the different tools that emerge out of the blue, the moment that Heptabase emerged, the moment that Tana emerged, the moment that we started using linear or any project management, it worked with ClickUp. We killed Slack and moved to ClickUp. Well, we have done, I don't know how many moves and changes of tool setup, but ICOR was always the solid foundational core from where everything worked. And by the way, without ICOR, we wouldn't have been able to leverage this new setup to the level that we have leveraged, that it has completely changed how we work and how we live, okay? Yeah. Because, we are saving, I don't know how long we are saving, and what we are delivering, it would have been impossible without this improvement.
Correct.
For sure.
And before we close now, two last things from YouTube I want to address, and then we move on, right? So there's one, I'm exploring this because of you guys. One question, can you have Claude on different Macs and have all this info in sync? And Paco is heavily nodding, and that's exactly, you know, I'm having Dropbox locally on my folder, my MacBook, and now I can install it on Windows and in any device and have Dropbox sync there. So wherever I start, I have the same folder. We can think in folders again. That makes things so simple. And how do you update a folder? How do you back up a folder? And we're not even talking about Git repos and so on. We could, but that's not maybe something you want to look into getting started. And that's something we discuss in a membership. If you join us, then we can discuss deeper. And another thing that...
Just one thing quickly. In my case, I got two different iMacs, okay? And I got one at home and another one at the office, and I'm working really, well, perfectly without any problem of synchronization, and working in any place perfectly. And that's something that it's amazing. And also, well, on mobile, we will talk about how we make these things, because now you can perfectly work on mobile. And the thing is that these tools are going to evolve, okay? These guys want this to work, okay? So the guys in Anthropic, in Claude, in OpenAI, all these guys are working towards making this available for as many people as possible and everywhere, no matter the device.
It is the thing, because now you could have Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that if you really have big files to handle, and just offload it completely into these vaults, and then connect it with API and let Claude speak with MCP or API with these platforms directly. So this means the content lives in the cloud already, and you can interact with it this way. So there are many ways how you can do that, but the easiest way to get started is really the local folder now. And I just want to, the last one that we will address, it would be interesting to see your implementation of this methodology in business settings. Any use cases of ICOR you would like to share? Thousands. Well, literally, we've been in thousands of businesses doing all this. We see this thing working on all levels, and we talk here about ICOR and not AI. AI, again, no matter in what business, and we work with businesses who do digital transformation in the countries for other enterprises and so on, and yet we still work with them to help them to implement AI. And this just shows, I've been working big corporate for over 8 years with 300,000 employees, and even there I was shocked that there was no proper foundation when it came to project management, where to find information, business knowledge management, all these things led to ICOR. I built this independently from Paco in the big corporate and climbed the ladder this way, managing 2 teams in parallel, and I left the company and went all the way in with the paperless movement, my ICOR. Then I met Paco, who launched and ran for over 20 years 4 businesses, right? And we met and concluded the same things. We talked to each other and said, we're doing complete different perspectives here, but we came to the same conclusion. And this is what you know now as ICOR, where everything is combined in one methodology, defining a productivity system end to end. And this is the tool agnostic foundation that gives you the possibility to build anything on top of it. And no matter, maybe it's AI today, who knows if we will live any time where there is anything else. But no matter what tool came out, we just moved on with our tool agnostic workflows and concepts to the next tool. And that makes you resilient and invincible to all these changes. And that's why we keep doubling down, and we see it over and over. Many join us for the AI information and so on. They start going through the ICOR journey and suddenly get the insights where they say, oh my God, if I would have known this years ago, what a different life I would have lived. Okay? So guys, what a long session today, but I think it was worth it to really dive deep into this now. Thank you, Paco, for staying and being with us here.
No, thank you to all the people who follow us. Thank you for being here. I don't know if we rambled too much, but well, we tried to deliver some kind of value at the end, and I hope that it has been at least been useful for the people. That's what we want.
Great. Okay, guys, we catch you up next week or inside the membership or tomorrow in Inner Circle coaching with Paco and me. So if you have any questions, follow up here, come in live, and we will figure it out together with you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much. See you.